Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here today at Book Blather. If you're new here, I'm Dave, this is Olive, and we talk about the books that we've read or acquired recently to help spread the joy of reading. Right? Yeah. What are we sitting by today? Once again, we're sitting by the trash, because today we are doing our Week 3 wrap-up of the reading event GarbAugust. The reading event spearheaded by CriminOlly, where in August we read a bunch of trash, or things that society generally considers trash. There's different weekly prompts, and for week 3, the prompt was to do either a book by a celebrity or novelization. So we went with novelization, and we have two things to talk to you about today. The second of which was a nice surprise, so we'll start off with the main thing that satisfied the prompt, which was novelization. Now, what we read was Star Trek X by James Blish. And so what this basically has 6 stories, short stories in them. They're each, it was nice, they're quick reads, they're each about 25, 30 pages, and they're each a novelization, quote unquote, of an episode, of an actual episode of the original Star Trek series. So, which, I thought you get to my age and you think you no longer remember what you've seen or read. And so I thought we had seen all those original Star Treks, but I actually didn't recognize, I don't think, any of these 6 stories. So this is, as you can see, number 10. There was, I believe, 12 of these books numbered like this that were James Blish adapting the episodes. Now, by the time number 10 rolled around, so this one was published in 1974, I believe. And yes, and by the time number 10 rolled around, I think they were no longer actually being written by James Blish, or part of them were not being, or maybe all of them not being. I mean, there's a rumor that Blish did not write any of number 10, so I don't know, but apparently at some point his wife started getting involved, and I think her mother, who was his assistant, started getting involved in some of the writing of these books. I think he was a little bitter about something, but this is not the only Star Trek novels that he's written. He also wrote another one that I think is pretty famous called Spock Must Die, and I'm not sure if there were any others. But so what was interesting? So this book was fun. Especially if you like Star Trek. This was a fun, relatively easy read, and just little, quick 30-page shot of each episode. And what was interesting about this book was that it was not at all in order, so I guess all the books in this series must be like that. They're just random episodes, which I thought was a little odd, but that's okay. It didn't really impact anything. So this one had 6 to give you an idea. So the first, I can't tell you too much about each of the stories because they're so short, but just really quickly so you know what they were about. The first story was called The Alternative Factor. So this was season 1, episode 28. And what this was about was basically they go to a planet that they think is uninhabited, and they see some guy who keeps disappearing into these strange mist and lights, and the special effects were not so great back then, but he's claiming to save reality from some other villain, but then we see the guy again, but this time he doesn't have he's no longer has the cut on his head, but it seems the same guy. He's just talking more lucidly, doesn't seem to be injured. And then, so we keep going back and forth between seeing the first guy and the second guy. And so, that's all I can say about that. The second one is The Empath, and this is what I'm talking about. This jumps to season 3, episode 12. And so this was, can't really say much about this. This is Kirk and his, right, this is the amazing thing about Star Trek. Of course, the captain and the first officer and the doctor, the most important people on the starship. Of course, they're always on the away team with some token lieutenant that can get killed. He can be the one that bites it. But, why the most important officers on the ship are always the ones going down into these foreign planets with, dangerous conditions. That's TV, right? So Kirk and his guys go down to the planet, and they get captured, and they have a fellow prisoner. There's this woman. She's mysterious. She seems to be mute, but then she has some special ability, and that's all I can say. So then it jumps around again. The third story is called The Galileo 7, And this is, oh, what was this one? This one was season 1, episode 17. And this one was, I think this is the one where Spock takes a landing party down. But the Enterprise is about to bring some medical supplies, I think a cure for a virus, to some colonies. And so they're on a schedule, but they see some anomaly, and they're supposed to investigate it. And so Spock takes an away team, but they get stranded down there, and they get out of communication. So the Enterprise is trying to rescue them, but there's some higher up, it wasn't an admiral, but some higher up that's pressuring them. They're on a strict time limit. They have to get going. They're going to have to leave Spock and the team if they don't find him. And Spock's team encounters some hostiles down on the planet, and that's all I can say about that one. Unfortunately, I can't say too much about these. They're so short. The next one is jumping back to season 3, episode 5, Is There in Truth No Beauty? And there's an ambassador that comes onto but this is, really alien entity that's like kept in a box, and they're called Medusians. And it's an ambassador, and so it comes onto the ship, but it has a caretaker that's a human. And so what this story is pretty much about is there ends up being a conflict between this human woman that's studied on Vulcan, and she wants to be the main partner for this ambassador, but Spock, who's a Vulcan and therefore has natural ability to mind meld, so this creates a conflict between the two of them and who's engaging with the ambassador. The next story was A Private Little War. So this was season 2, episode 19, totally bouncing around. The Private Little War, and this is where they go. Captain Kirk is returning to a planet that he hasn't been at, I think for 17 years it was. And when he gets down there, some of the technology has evolved, and there's 2 different groups of individuals down there, and one suddenly has guns, and maybe there's some Federation adversaries involved in this, and we'll leave it at that. And then the last story was the Omega Glory. So this was season 2, episode 23. And this one was, what was this one about again? This one was, this was where they go, one of their other planets, I forget what it was called, the Exeter, or I don't remember, something like that. And like, it seems like everybody on that one has disappeared. They appear to be dead. And so they go down to the planet, and the issue is there's some biological, some biological issue, and I can't say any more than that. But then it turns out there's somebody else down there, and so there's this unexpected real drama, and so it was good. It was a pretty good story. So that's pretty much it. So 6 stories, maybe whet your appetite a little bit, give you a little bit of flavor. I think we'll probably try some more of these, actually, Star Trek volumes, because we did have a good time of it. Maybe we'll try some of the earlier ones where we know they were written by Blish, because I think like after book 6 or something like that, then there started to be some question of how much was actually being written by his wife, because by the time they got to the end, his wife was actually co-credited. Like, I think the final book got published like after he died, and they put it out, and she was co-credited on that one. So clearly she ended up taking over some of the writing at some point, and so maybe I'll try an earlier one, see. But I had a good time with it. This was definitely worth reading, especially if you're a Star Trek fan. This was fun. Okay, and then the other thing that we've read, which is not a novel, this is in keeping with the practice we've taken on now of each week we also do a trashy graphic novel or comic. And so the one that we did this week was Sunstone, Volume 1. And I'm not sure how to pronounce the author and artist, this I'm totally going to mispronounce this, Stjepan Sejic. And so I had some confidence going into this, because some time ago I had read another series that he did called Death Vigil. It was like a 7 or 8 issue series, and I enjoyed that. And so I had some confidence going into this. And this is actually has an interesting history. This has not come out in single issue form. So this guy, he had done a few different things, including he worked on a very popular comic called Witchblade, but basically he experienced some burnout. And so this was basically his attempt to kind of just get away and just kind of do some graphic panels on stuff that he wanted to, just kind of like reignite his creativity. And that's one of the cool things about this book, is at the end of it there's a long section on that. So, but he initially started just publishing some he made a secret account on DeviantArt and just started publishing like individual panels or strips about these characters and some other characters. They've changed some, but he originally started doing it on DeviantArt, and it was such a success for him for just re-sparking his creativity and getting him back into it, and such a success with the fans that he ended up becoming very popular and ended up getting collected in these volumes. And so this one came out in 2014. This is the first volume, and so this was put out by Image Comics and by Top Cow Productions. So brief history lesson, Image Comics, who's now one of the biggest, I think it's the third biggest behind DC and Marvel. Very big comic imprint now, but they haven't been around as long as the others. They started, I think it was 1992, early 90s. Image started there was 7 guys that left. I think they were mostly at Marvel, but maybe Marvel and DC, kind of disenfranchised because didn't have any ownership rights in the characters they were creating, and so they broke off and started this Image Comics imprint. But they were very popular guys: Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and so most of them then had those individual studios within Image Comics. So that's what Top Cow is. That was one of the founders was Mark Silvestri. His big comic when they started Image was Cyberforce, and so Top Cow Studios was kind of Productions was his studio within the Image umbrella. And so they ended up collecting this under the Image imprint and putting this out in 2014. And there's now 7 volumes. I think it's still going. I think it's an ongoing series. And this we got, because we thought this fit the bill of trash, because this is about 2 women that are engaged in a BDSM relationship, right? So for the subject matter, we thought that qualifies. So not trash. This was incredible, and so we keep having this discussion. What do you call trash? And that's part of the reason for us all reading trash. And so I guess this is a classic example. Is that based on the subject matter, a lot of people would call this trash, but this book was wonderful. I mean, this was a beautiful story, this book. And so it followed these 2 women, but really there was as much character development as you can do in a graphic novel. It's not the same in a book, but for a graphic novel, some pretty good character development. And it was really about these 2 women that were kind of lonely, nerdy women that had these fantasies. That one had the fantasy of becoming, a dom, I guess a dominatrix, and another one that always had a fantasy of, just being a submissive. And so they meet online. They finally get a little brave, and they meet online, and they talk for a few months, and then they meet in person. And originally it's about the BDSM, but of course it ends up being a real romance. And this was such a beautifully written story. The writing was top notch. It was beautiful, and the story was such a sweet story. And both of these women, this was their first time, so they're very nervous and they're excited. It's that nervous excitement, with something new like this, and this is particularly daring for them. And so it was just a wonderful graphic novel in every way. It was such a wonderful surprise. So this is not one that you want to read on the train. Okay, so most of it is very racy. So there's a lot of sexy scenes. There is a lot of nudity in it, but it's not porn. So whenever there's going to be something that's like really graphic stuff, that's just left behind the scenes to your imagination. That's not depicted in here. But there are a lot of sexy nude scenes depicted in here. So you don't want to be reading it in public and have some little kid all of a sudden looking over your shoulder about seeing what you're reading. So so be careful where you read it. But It was great. Like I said, the writing was great. The art was really good. I had to be careful. There's not a lot I can show you actually because so many of the panels. But just to give you a little idea of give you some safe ones here. Not a lot of safe ones, but just to give you an idea of what this art was like. So those are some of the safe pages, but really sort of original but very high quality art. And like I said, this was just so good. So as I mentioned, you know, it was each of their first time, and so they were excited and nervous, and so there was a lot, in addition to it being like so well written and delving into the characters, it dealt a lot with, you know, vulnerability and trust and love, and, you know, making yourself open to, you know, with the right person, trying things in a situation that you would maybe not normally feel safe. And also, you know, from the sort of risky, sexy side of things, also, you know, how what they were feeling and how they experienced these things, and in particular, how they were able to find pleasure in things when they were able to let themselves go, let themselves be vulnerable, let themselves trust, and you know, this other, if the other person is the right person. And it was just it was really sweet, and it was really touching in that way. We are definitely going to go read more of these. Like, this was such a nice surprise. We did not expect this to be this good, and we are definitely going to keep reading it. We definitely want to. By the time we were done reading this, we were in love with both of these characters, and so we definitely want to read more of their story. And I'm guessing it'll probably, there's some you know, side character, and I'm guessing it'll expand, but we'll see. And then at the end of it, there's a really nice bonus section of a lot of his additional panels that gave rise to this, and he tells you his story of how this got started, what I gave you a little brief summary of, and how this got started. And he's got quite a section devoted to that, and bonus, you know, covers and stuff like that. And so this was a really cool volume, and I would highly recommend this. So that was it. That was what we read for week 3. Star Trek 10 by James Blish. Maybe by James Blish, and Sunstone, Volume 1. So we had a good week 3. Sunstone was a nice, refreshing, you know, graphic novel after that disaster that was Battle Pope last week. So we are on to week 4. This week 4, we're going to be reading Celestial Chess, which was one of Panic's reads for last year, and we're all trying. All of the co-hosts, who will all be linked below, we're all trying to read one of the books that Pax, who recently passed away, had read during GarbAugust last year. So that's what we're working on now, and so we'll see. I know we said so. We got a few things coming up very shortly. I know I always say this. Olive, you fall asleep, man? Come on, we got to tell them about the videos we have coming up. I think she fell asleep. So you fall asleep? Hey. Yeah. It's tired today. It's hot. So I know we said we were going to do a book haul first before then, but we were already so late with this week 3 wrap up. So we're going to do the book haul shortly. We have a few of those to do, but we'll leave it till those videos to tell you about that. So of one of those coming up, some announcements, some exciting things that have happened we want to talk about, but we'll save that for the next video. So see you very soon. But as always, thanks so much for watching. If you've read either of these, we would love to hear your comments about them, or if you plan to read it, especially Sunstone. Really curious to hear what people think about that. So, you know, leave us a comment. We always love to hear from you. If you don't want to leave anything substantive, you can always leave Olive a puppy emoji. She always likes to see those, right? So thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next time.